Hi everyone, my name is Gloria and I'm a second year architecture student studying at the Bartlett School of Architecture. Welcome back to another architecture related video, and today I'll be giving you 10 tips on surviving your first year in architecture school. Keep in mind that this is my experience at the Bartlett, which may vary if you're in a different architecture school, but I believe that experiences are interchangeable, so hopefully this will help you too. So let's go. So before we get into the tips, I wanted to share a little backstory I have before I was going into my first year of architecture school. There was this post on UCL Love on Facebook talking about the nightmares of studying at the Bartlett and how the tutors are really mean and scary with their criticisms, and how if you only get 4 hours of sleep per day, that would be a really good achievement. So I got really scared because of this post, but the thing I realized is that no two people's experiences in school or architecture school is going to be the same, even if you're in the same school. So the good news is I did not experience any of these nightmare things that the person who wrote this post described, or most of the things he had to go through. So that means you can also have a great and happy time at architecture school. So let's go with the tips. Tip number 1. Join extracurricular activities or societies outside of architecture. You will often hear that first years have the most time on their hands, and while I'm not sure if that statement is true, thanks to coronavirus and remote studying, I still strongly believe in joining extracurriculars and societies outside of your course because I think they help you personally develop as a person. Because you're able to focus on your hobbies outside of architecture, which would help you develop as a person, which would then help with your academic work too. I joined a lot of societies in the beginning of my first year, so I did dance, live music, and badminton when I had the time, and I formed some of my best memories of uni during that period of time. But depending on your time commitments and your job, these may change throughout the year, but don't be scared because you can always join first and then leave later. Tip number 2. Do not pull all-nighters. I repeat, do not pull all-nighters. So this is probably just a personal preference because I can hear all my friends whispering behind my back saying that I'm wrong. But I strongly believe that you should not pull all-nighters. And you do not need to pull all-nighters to do well in architecture, despite all of the rumors you've heard before entering architecture school. In fact, I think I slept before 12 a.m., so like midnight, for 90% of my time in architecture school, if you count in the days that I had dinner and hung out with my friends after dinner and kept talking past midnight. And I also never pulled an all-nighter in my university life, or in my life actually, because I really cannot function if I don't sleep for a day, and I think it's just very damaging to your own body, which I really need to congratulate myself for actually. So if you're interested in how I successfully manage my time, there's gonna be a video there, I'll link it there, about my time management tips, so you can check it out if you're interested. As a side note, although I don't deny the fact that pulling all-nighters with your friends can be a nice bonding activity if you're all rushing for the deadline the next day. It can be a fun bonding activity, but personally I would not be able to do it because I wouldn't be able to function the next day. Tip number 3. Criticism isn't personal. I think this is a big one actually. So this is the part where I debunk the whole tutors are super scary myth, partly. So I don't deny the fact that some tutors are really scary and they say some really mean things to you, which I will not make any examples. But the point I want to make is usually these criticisms are not personal at all. This means they are not saying this to you because of you. It is just purely of the work you gave them. They could be saying the same thing to a completely different person. So the point is to don't take it personally, and don't let any negative remarks a tutor says determine you as a person. I won't lie and say that I'm perfect because I'm not, and I've had my few times of crying during my first few tutorials in my first year because, as you know, I was still a newbie. But as time goes on and you get more familiar with how things work, you recognize that it's really not personal, so you'll just have to move on and do the work. Number 4. Listen to tutors, but stand your ground. This is actually a very hard thing to balance because on the one hand, tutors are more experienced than you, so you're more inclined to listen to what they have to say, but on the other hand, sometimes it can get a bit out of hand and you want to stick with your own opinion. I would say for first years, on most occasions, I listen to my tutor's opinion because I'm still getting used to the environment, but once you feel more comfortable with the environment, and if you feel really strongly about a particular issue in your project, you can definitely tell your tutors and voice it out. And to be honest, I think tutors appreciate a good discussion and you can just get more out of your tutorials, but all depends on the situation. Number 5. Do not slave away in the studio. And self-care. So this is a big one for me because I identify myself as a workaholic. So there's no better way to spend my time than working in the studio, slaving away on my project, because at least that way I won't feel guilty about wasting my time. But let me tell you that the time you spend outside of your project is usually the time that inspiration strikes because of the fact that you're taking care of yourself and you're doing something else other than your project or hanging out with your friends. And these things all help nurture your body and your mind, which in return will also help with the flow of your creative process. So please take care of yourself, and please do not glorify overworking or being busy, or romanticize the idea of overworking to a breaking point or the need of suffering to have good results. I've actually discussed this topic with my friend Yen Shan on our podcast, Designing Thoughts, on the episode on how to cultivate creativity. So if you're interested, I will leave the link down below and you can go check it out. Number 6. Talk to students in other departments. I feel that when you study architecture, you're kind of limited in your own bubble of architecture students, especially if your department has its own building, which is what the Bartlett is. It has its own building. So I encourage talking to students both outside of your department and your course, or also just talking to students of different years within your course. Because I think uni is all about learning new things and gaining new perspectives, and not stepping out of your bubble or your comfort zone means you won't be able to personally develop as much. So join events or even talk to your flatmates and learn about another department, so you won't waste the opportunity you have while being at university. Number 7. Use references in your work. So tutors will highly encourage this too, but let me make a point that this is different to when you use an artist reference in A-level art, assuming that you've taken A-level art before you went to university or IB, because you're not to directly copy the reference, which can be painting, a building, installation, a sculpture, etc., but to learn its qualities or its atmosphere or the process of making it. Having a library of references when you do your project work will have more depth and shows you have an interest and are willing to learn more about your project's respective area. Plus, it's just really fun to learn about how different architects and artists go about their creative process. Number 8. Use the library. Whenever a project starts, your first stop should really be the library, or maybe second if you have to do site surveying. It gives your project so many starting points based on the books you find in the library. I regret not using the library as early as possible when I was in my first year, but it changed my life and my project flow after I started using it more often after a few months. You find so many interesting things and references that you will not be able to find on the internet. I usually type in certain keywords of my project in the library search engine and find one book that fits my criteria, and then go to the library and find that book, and then browse other books that's nearby that particular book in the section because they put books of similar topics in the same area. Plus, I just think it's a waste if you don't use your school's library when you're enrolled there and there's so many resources available. Number 9. Always talk to your peers and course mates about your work, and don't be afraid to share your work. I think this point again is more about stepping outside your comfort zone. I think sharing work with peers and your friends is really a crucial part of architecture and what studio culture is about. You kind of bounce ideas off of each other, and while others give you a fresh new perspective, you can also offer the same back to their project. Just take a leap of faith and talk to people, and who knows, you might be able to make a friend too. I know this might be difficult if it's remote learning, but doing work together over a Zoom call that lasts for a few hours can be a great starting point, or meeting up once a week with friends or your tutor group to talk and discuss about your work will also be a nice activity, not only for projects but also for bonding too. So my friends and I created a Miro board to put all of our work on there, and we can leave comments on each other's work, which was very useful to see your own and also other people's work too. So I'll leave the link below to Miro boards if you're interested. Number 10. Knowing and enjoying the process. So I actually learned this point or tip more in depth when I went to the Bartlett. I thought I knew what enjoying the process meant when I was doing art in A-level, but really I didn't. Because during A-level art, when I was in the process, I knew what the end product of the project was going to be like, and I knew what it looked like in my head. But when I applied the same process to my Bartlett projects, it didn't work, because as my tutor said, you shouldn't know what your end product looks like until you're at that stage. The process is supposed to help you discover what it looks like and what it means to you. So you shouldn't know what it looks like until you're at the final stage. And also, please enjoy the process. If architecture and this is what you're passionate about, don't let the stress take the fun out of the project. I know it is easier said than done because I personally struggle with this a lot, but just know that you are not alone, and we are all trying to have fun and enjoy our time while doing our project work. And now for an extra tip. Use your voice. Don't be afraid to use your voice to raise certain issues you think are important in the department and how the education can be changed. One thing I learned in uni is that you're almost an equal to the tutors and the staff there in the department, and they also really want you to give them feedback, which is very different to, say, secondary school or high school. So don't be afraid and just do it. Just be brave and courageous. Go up to a tutor or a member of staff and voice your opinion. It will make a difference. And for us, because it's our education, it matters a lot that students like us step up and tell the tutors and staff what we think of the curriculum. As students, we have to stand together and use our voice to create change. That's all for today's video. I hope this was really helpful for you. If this is something you'd like to see more, please subscribe and leave me a comment down below if there's anything else you'd like to add. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching my videos. I really appreciate it. And see you in the next one. Bye!